welcome to the Chase webinar. We do this series of webinars roughly for 2 weeks, different topics. So we really are happy that we always get a good audience. Today's topic is going to be the power of acoustic lighting. First time I heard that, I was intrigued. Sam and I already talked about it, and he told me a little bit about what to expect. So I'm very fascinated to see his full presentation. This will be a 45-minute presentation, and then we'll leave about 10 minutes afterwards for some questions and answers, some Q&As. Today, this webinar is a CEU, so you will get credits for your participation. We are recording this webinar, and will be made available on our website, chaseoffice.ca/events. It'll be about 72 hours, and you will be able to view it. Also, on December 9th, I just had a quick look here, we are having our next webinar, also CEU accredited, Healthy Walls, Choosing Sustainable Wall Coverings. I think very topical subject as well. So today with us is Sam Greer. Sam is a North American lighting ambassador for Buzzy Space. He's been in the lighting industry for over 15 years. He specializes in European decorative lighting for commercial interiors. So I know that's always something that people enjoy hearing about. So Sam, I would like to hand this over to you. It's your show. So Go ahead.
Sure. All right. Thanks for inviting me to do this. I appreciate the opening. Yes. So I am the lighting ambassador for the US market and Canadian market for Buzzy Space. If you're not familiar with Buzzy Space, we are an Antwerp-based company. Next year is our 15th anniversary. So we're full into our teenage years now. The company is, everything is handmade. It's all made in Antwerp, and our DNA is all about acoustic solutions. So we have wall partitions, we have desking, we have furniture, we have ceiling solutions, and lighting. Lighting is their fastest growing category, and that's why I joined the Buzzy Space team about 2 years ago now. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of the Buzzy Space story in a nutshell, but since it's a CEU, I'm not gonna really talk about Buzzy Space products specifically once I start the CEU presentation, but obviously afterwards we can have a Q&A if there are some Buzzy Space questions for you guys. So I'm gonna share my screen here, and before I jump into the presentation, we use a platform to get your CEU credit, your credit issued. I put in the link to click that. So if you click that link, you'll see this web page, and then you'll be able to register on here to put your name, your affiliation number, and then my colleagues will give you the okay that you signed up, you were present in the presentation, and you'll get the credit sent to you. So jumping into the presentation, I will again show that link a couple times at the beginning and the end, and then I've asked Gianpaolo and his thank you to everybody to also include that link so that nobody has any problems on getting their credit for today's presentation. I'm going to turn off my camera now and go right to it. So, oh, by the way, if you have questions, if you don't mind holding it till the end, that might be a little bit easier so we don't get off track with our time. So,
and Sam, the questions, everybody can type in their questions in the chat, so I can always review those after you're done with your presentation.
Okay. Yep. So as Gianpaolo mentioned, this is the power of acoustic lighting. It's really about improving the acoustics in your office space. And I'm actually at one of my reps' showrooms, so I've got some acoustic things going on right now. So that can play right into it. Let's see. Here is, again, that link that you'll find. So again, just go here. You can get credit for any of these affiliations once you register for it. So in today's presentation, I'm going to go through 5 or 4 different topics here. Briefly, what are the challenges, acoustically speaking, in designing today's workspace? Then I'm going to go to everybody's favorite part, the theory. I say that kind of in a silly way. I do have the pretty part in number 3 with how to apply the acoustic lighting and the design or the redesign of a space. And then I want to end on some support tools that you guys should look for when looking for acoustic lighting. So yeah, first things first, challenging while designing today's workspace. I think this is important, you know, as a starting point to define acoustics, and how we define it with our office space solutions. It's really about the properties and qualities of a room or building that determines how sound is being transmitted in it. It's about, you know, how reflective the surfaces are, the wall, the floor, the ceiling, other objects. They're all going to reflect and have other issues with the sound itself within that space. So every object has some acoustic properties. Some are going to be more dense products that are going to help absorb acoustics. Some, like your glass walls or windows, those are still acoustic products, but they're reflecting the sound in that room. So people don't think of that as an acoustic product, but it is something that is obviously creating issues to the acoustics within the space. So when you get into the challenges with the workspace, you definitely need to keep in mind how does the acoustics function with productivity and well-being. They're both very related. Obviously, if you have the acoustics balanced in the space, you're going to be able to have more focus, you can be more productive, and then that's going to overall relate to the well-being of the employees and the people experiencing that space. So it's super important to make sure you get that just right. You can overdo it, you can underdo it. Obviously, that's what most people are familiar with. So definitely want to make sure you can get that balance so you have that well-being and productivity in the right equilibrium. A few statistics here that we have, I've pulled from a number of different sources. I always feel silly when I've got it written, but I'll read this out. So 80% of office workers said that having good lighting in their space was important to them. 40% of people have to deal with uncomfortable lighting in their workspace each day. 32% saying if they had better lighting, they'd be happier at work. When you come to the acoustics side of it, employees can be up to 66% less productive when exposed to just one nearby conversation. There's so many quotes and phrases we can put in, but I just kept this one. To me, I think it's a bit interesting. One of the reasons why people are so distracted by a nearby conversation, it's really the evolution. You know, when you think about, you hear other noises, you may not be as distracted as hearing somebody's voice. It's has to do with, you know, you're rearing a child, or maybe somebody's yelling at you to get out of the way. So it's just in your brain to kind of eavesdrop. So as soon as you hear somebody talking next to you, even if you're typing away at your computer, it's still like you can't shut it off. So it's just innately embedded into you to eavesdrop into other people's conversations. So so some people might be more nosy than others, but everybody has it to a degree. Some of the benefits of getting the light and the acoustics settled in your space. Obviously, you're going to have more efficient working that we already mentioned, better focus, reduced stress level. Even I like the one on the bottom, the fewer grumpy workers. That's nobody wants to go to work with the grumpy workers there. Even balanced your blood pressure. So there's a lot of health benefits playing into the well-being of people once you get the lighting and the acoustics set up properly in the space. So key takeaway, the acoustics and the lighting do contribute to the productivity and the well-being of your workspace. Some theory here. So I'm going to break this down. I'm going to first go into lighting theory and then also some acoustics, and then come back and combine them together and how we can work together with specific products. So what is light? 3 principles here. This is a very basic part, so some people may be more familiar and comfortable with lighting, but 3 basic principles here is light output, which is defined by lumens or described by lumens, your color temperature, and illuminance. So if I take the first one, light output, I've been in lighting for over 15, almost 20 years now. So if I might have a younger audience here, so you might be very well familiar with lumen as describing how bright or the output of a light. When I started in lighting, we were still using halogen and incandescent. So everybody's thinking about wattage and you're like, what's how do I know? I know what a 100-watt bulb looks like, how bright that is. But really, wattage does not tell you how bright a fixture is. It's telling you how much energy is being consumed. It's really important, if you need to know how bright and what the output is, that you're looking at the lumens and not the wattage. That's not to say to ignore wattage. Obviously, there's a lot of building codes and well codes that you want to make sure you're only using X number of watts per square foot, but it's just important to distinguish the two, so you're not thinking this is a 100-watt fixture and I'm going to have this level of brightness. Then once you know how bright the fixture is, what the output is, you also need to know the illuminance. And what this is, it's the lux level. So how is this surface going to be lit from the lumens in that fixture? So this has to do with the angle of the light and how bright it is at the point that it's being hit. So in this particular drawing, I have this table at a work surface height. So the recommended lux level for work surface is going to be 500 lux. So I know from this manufacturer, you have to have that fixture at about 52 inches or 51 inches to get the right lux level. Other considerations can be in mind. Maybe there's a TV or a art piece or something in the wall in the way that you don't want to hide, but overall you want to shoot for having that 500 lux on a work surface from 1, 2, or however many fixtures it happens to be. There are certainly more than one application for light, so I'm going to show you a little lux chart in a little bit. Just want to let you know what that term is when I talk about lux. The third part, color temperature. This is measured in Kelvin. So rule of thumb, the lower the number, the warmer the light is going to appear. So if you look all the way at the bottom of the chart, 2500, that's going to be sunset or sunrise. So when you're specifying lighting, maybe you're doing hospitality and you want a warmer look, so you're going 2700. Maybe you're doing healthcare, so you need a more cool look. So you're going to want to get in that 4000 range. But it's based on, this is a circadian rhythm chart essentially, but if you want to look at noon on a sunny day when the sun's high in the sky, that's going to be roughly 6500. And then and that's when people are generally more alert. So when you have that cooler, higher color temperature, people are going to be more alert and more focused. Oftentimes in healthcare situations, they want to have a very high color temperature so that people are more focused in what they're doing. So this can definitely play into it, what your mindset is, how you're going to be active and working within the space based on the color temperature of that lighting. Two other points real quick, light quality, UGR and CRI. I'm going to start with the CRI. So the color rendering index, this is how natural or realistic an object looks when it's being lit by that luminaire. So you can see the same image lit by two different sources. So the CRI 70, obviously a bit more fuzzy, a little bit harder to distinguish these reds and oranges, versus on the CRI 93 where it's a lot crisper. This is going to happen to allow people to be more focused on what they're looking at, so you're not straining your eye as much. In fact, where Tricia is in California, they have Title 24, which mandates that all fixtures have to be 90 or higher. That's not currently the case, as far as my knowledge, in Vancouver, where most of our audience is today. But it is kind of a rule of thumb in North America to try to specify lighting with 90 or higher. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at fixtures. One last point with light quality is the Unified Glare Rating, or the UGR. And this is a rating that is describing the discomfort from glare. So I like this, well, I shouldn't say I like this image because I'm showing glare, but I think it's a good representation, because you can have glare from the light fixture itself. So you can see it coming out from the can light here. And you can also have reflected glare off of these glossy tiles, or it could also be off of a monitor. So you really want to look for fixtures that eliminate a high likelihood of having glare. So there's a whole chart, basically 5 to 40. The higher the rating, the worse the glare is going to be. There are different degrees of comfort. So for meeting rooms, you want to have a lower glare rating. So you want to have that around 16, or on the opposite end of the spectrum, a corridor, a lobby, maybe a cafeteria, you can get away with a higher glare level because you're not going to be spending a lot of time there. You're not doing a lot of focused work. But once you get over that 28, it's deemed harsh for workspace. So if you see that, it's a big red flag. Don't spec that fixture, don't use that fixture. You're going to have a lot of complaints. It's going to really start giving people migraines or headaches and issues with concentration. So definitely it's going to contribute to the well-being of the office space if you have a bad UGR on your fixture. So jumping away from lighting and getting into the sound portion, I think quickly just say what the definition of sound is. It's the vibrations transmitting through any kind of form. Most commonly it's air. So the audible frequencies for people is going to be between 20 and 20,000 hertz. And I like to focus on a lot with the speech range. So I'll dig into that a little bit further, but what is sound here? The frequency, we have to talk about frequencies. So the higher the frequency or the lower the frequency, so we know what and how to address that particular sound. So frequency is given a number. It's how many waves or vibrations there are in a particular second. So in this case, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this would be a frequency of 5 hertz. So breaking it into the sound category, or sorry, got a little distracted there. So this middle range here is what we focus on the most, especially in workspace, because that's that speech frequency from 250 to 2500 hertz. Again, the higher frequencies, this is going to be more like ringtones or chirping or people typing on a keyboard, clicking. And then the last one is the long waves or the low frequencies. That's going to be HVAC or mechanical noise. That doesn't come into play in the workplace too often unless maybe it's a warehouse or something where there's heavy machinery going on. One other thing to mention about the types of products, especially with lighting, acoustic lighting products, we're focusing on room acoustics. So I know right now I've got a number of noises in my background. You might not be able to hear it, but this is shared with a company. They've got a loud radio playing. That's building acoustics. I can hear that from the neighbor. So that's an architectural issue that should have been resolved then. With room acoustics, which is where the lighting is going to fall into. This is resolving sound within the space. So in this case, this guy is the source of the sound. Sound is going, this isn't necessarily the best application because it's really going every direction all at one time. So then it's bouncing off of any reflective surface, creating reverberations. So we want to tackle the reverberations. To get that done, you're going to need to help to absorb the reverberations. This is going to be primarily with high density products, with a lot of porosity, foam products, for example. Attenuation, this is going to help to slow down or to block the sound after it hits that product. And then diffusion, so that's going to help scatter the sound waves and help it decay quicker. So there are some recommended reverberation times, like I mentioned the lux level for the work table. We also have what are appropriate recommendations for killing the reverberation within a room. So this is a point, when you see these decimal, that's per second. So 0.4 to 0.9 per second. You want to be able to kill that sound wave that quickly to help with the sound in that call space. So you've got general office, private offices, meeting rooms. Basically, the less focused it is, the more you can get away with reverberations. The higher the focus is, the more you're going to want to absorb. And then I always like this part because I'm like, I could have just started with this because this is actually just keep this one in mind, the trinity here. How do you tackle reverberation? So density, the more porous, the better. Size, the larger the fixture is or whatever the element is, there's a larger surface space, so you're able to capture much more of that reverberation. Then shape. So the more geometric it is, the better at diffusion. So you've got all these angles or curves, and that's going to help really dissipate that sound in the space. So when it comes to our lighting, primarily we're working with two different types of materials to help with the acoustics. There's going to be fixtures that are upholstered with a high density foam. And this is going to be definitely more helpful on all the ratios from the high to the low. And then also there are fixtures that are just felt. Still very helpful acoustically speaking, but they're going to work better in the high tones than all three of the tones or the frequencies. And you can see, again, being a CEU, I've cut out some of the product names. This is comparing various felt fixtures. The larger the scale, the better it's doing at capturing these high tones and that 2000 to 4000 hertz. And then you can compare it with upholstered fixtures and upholstered lighting, and you can see it's more balanced from the low to the high tones. Then acoustic data, actually this slide wasn't supposed to be here. I'm going to come to that at the end. So for aesthetic purposes, you have defining the function. The lighting is something with decorative lighting. You're going to help to define the space. You can mix and match with this is one of the things I like about acoustic lighting is now, you think of old acoustics, it was very boring, and now bringing it in as a decorative fixture, you can have all these different colors and sizes and shapes to really mix and match with other interior elements. A lot of times it's helpful so you can express who the company is as a brand. It can be very playful, you can be very serious. It's a lot more interesting that you can have so many colors and aesthetics than what was available even 10 years ago. And here you can see some actual examples of some of these acoustic luminaires here. So very different aesthetics, but again, helping quite well within the space. So here's where it gets interesting. So I can marry the acoustics and the lighting into how do you apply them into the design of a space. Obviously, when you're choosing the acoustic lighting, you always want to start from the setting or what the task is. You're going to want to look at that chart. So I showed already the RT60 time. Again, with the lux levels, you want to have the higher lux levels for more focused work. Lower lux levels are acceptable for less focused activities here. I like this chart. I know that maybe sounds kind of nerdy, but having both in one place, good opportunity to do a little screenshot so you can have that as a backup. Of course, you can always Google lux levels or RT60, but I think it's great to have it all on one slide here. Obviously, variables within the space, are there windows giving you a lot of natural light? Is it a 24-hour work cycle where you might have a lot of natural light at one part and then you're working with dark outside, and so you have to have different controls and different lighting elements throughout the day? What kind of color furniture, what color is the wall? If it's a darker surface, it's going to be more absorptive of the light versus reflective. Size of the room, it kind of goes without saying, the larger the space is, the more light you need to illuminate that space. So I've broken down to 3 different categories here. So these come to us quite often, and I'm sure you guys have all worked in these scenarios with how do you help with the acoustics in open spaces, lobbies, and meeting rooms. So we're going to start with the open space. With all of these, really, I think it's important to think about using zoning. So you want to create acoustic zones, one obviously for the sound, but also to help create visual privacy. You want to really try to help prevent sound from transmitting from one zone to the other zone. Same with the lighting. You're going to want to have certain areas that are better lit than others, just based on what the functions might happen to be. So this is actually, I can't say project names. This is one Trisha's very familiar with, my colleague that said hello earlier. This one I like to compare and contrast. There's so many different aesthetics that you can choose from, but when you look at this space, there's hard ceilings, concrete floors. There's not a lot of area in a big open space to put acoustic elements. And one of the rules with acoustics is the closer you can have an acoustic absorbing object to the source of the sound, the more of that sound you're going to capture. So if you can imagine somebody sitting in this desk, there's really nothing at the wall or on the floor that's helping. So having something, the lighting right above head, this is something that you can get much closer to people. You need the light because you need the lux levels to really illuminate those workstations. But then you also have that acoustic benefit of having these large drums right over the people that are on telephones or Zoom calls. So you can really help capture the sound waves more quickly than it bouncing all the way across the room, hitting some kind of wall panel that you might have. And again, when aesthetics play into it, there's so many different types of options. Maybe you didn't like that last fixture. So here's another option where you have a large acoustic cloud, essentially, again, with the high output LED to really get those lux levels that you need over the workstations. Lobby space, they're a bit trickier because there's a lot more activities going on. You still want to create those acoustic zones, those visual zones. You're going to need to have some higher output for maybe the reception area, lower output and lower lux levels for people that are just lounging and waiting for their turn to go in the office. So I like this particular one because you can see here these, I know it's maybe a little bit difficult to see with the perspective, but larger fixtures in this background where again, you're going to have a higher light output, a higher lux level for the reception back there. And then also having a cluster of these fixtures over here where maybe somebody is doing a quick phone call while they're waiting. And again, having these larger elements that are highly absorptive to help capture that sound. Versus over here, there is some illumination with these fixtures. So maybe it's at nighttime and you need the light, but it's not, that's obviously not an acoustic fixture, but this is also a bit more open so people can come and go and you don't have to worry about that portion. Then I like this one where it's actually showing it at nighttime. And it's a two-story space, which can be quite difficult because you have a larger space. It's a lot harder to capture the reverberations because what do you do when you have such an open space? So having these lighting elements that are just hanging halfway through the space, you're really essentially you're dividing the space in two, but in a very decorative way, but still also providing that functional light that you need. There is obviously some higher output architectural lighting up here. But I think too, playing with the different shapes and the forms here. So you've got one area that's designated for the reception with these fun fixtures over here. And then these larger scale pieces that are giving a nice acoustic cloud effect, essentially speaking, in the lounge area. And then lastly, meeting rooms. Meeting rooms are one of the most challenging applications that we get asked for. Typically, meeting rooms are smaller in scale. There's a lot of hard surfaces. There's windows, there's glass walls. There might be carpet on the floor, but usually there's not a lot of space to put an acoustic element into a meeting room. So I like this particular image. They did actually have some drapery here, so that does help somewhat with the acoustics. But if you think about it, what I was just saying, if there's all these hard elements, where do you put an acoustic treatment? And all these meeting rooms, you always need to have lighting over the work surface, over the conference table. So you're going to definitely want to have a lighting that can provide an acoustic source, an acoustic treatment for you. So again, you can think about these people talking here. That's going to be the quickest thing to capture sound waves. The other thing with meeting rooms is the sound equipment or the teleconferencing equipment. A lot of times people will spend a lot of money on the AV and they're not thinking about how it is for the person on the other end of that call. So it's already an apparatus capturing the sound to whoever's on the other end, but it's also capturing the reverberation that these people sitting here, they might not hear the reverberation, but the person on the other end is. So you've spent all this money on that equipment, and because you didn't treat the room properly acoustically, it's not giving the benefit to the person you're communicating with. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're looking at meeting rooms and how do you help with acoustic issues within a space, is also think about not only who's sitting in there, but who's actually on the other end on Zoom calls or teleconferencing calls. And obviously, I like to show different applications. So we've got this particular room with one type of setup. Obviously, we've added some more acoustic material here behind the monitor. Also some partitions against the window to help bolster the acoustic application. Same with the room next door, different aesthetic altogether. But again, providing a lot of different acoustic support within the space. And lastly, some support and tools. So certificates and data and digital tools. So certificates, you guys are, I'm sure you're familiar with UL or CUL. Basically, when it comes to lighting or anything electric, you want to make sure it's complying with the NRTL standards. So UL and ETL are the most common. That's at the bare minimum. You may need to have different environmental codes like a green guard or WELL certification. So just make sure when you're looking at lighting that at the bare minimum you have those UL or ETL ratings. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. You're gonna have to go back and reselect some fixtures. The same is true when it comes to acoustics. You want to look at the acoustic reporting. So with any company that is an acoustic company, you want to make sure they're having a third party do their acoustic assessments, their acoustic reporting. The reason is, it's one thing for me to say, hey, this is an acoustic fixture, but who am I? You want to go to a reputable company that's doing a third party testing, that's doing it properly. So you can, I know this is a little bit tricky to see in that one image, those are actually light fixtures that are on blocks. The reason why that is because you want to have it tested on how it's going to actually work within the space. So if it's something that's wall mounted or surface mounted, it's going to be tested in a very different way. So a lot of times we're seeing companies that are coming out with acoustic fixtures and they've tested just the material itself, but they're not testing it in a way that it would actually be used on your project. So they'll have a report that's not even, if they're doing the report to begin with, but that's not even showing it accurately on how it's going to function. So you want to make sure with whatever company you're working with, if it's a lighting up fixture or anything that's not flush mounted, that they are testing it properly. You want every product to be tested correctly so that you're getting exactly what you're paying for. Obviously, too, you want to look for companies that have different support tools, different technologies to help you. Acoustics can be quite tricky. Obviously, you can't see sound, so you're going to need somebody that has different ways to measure and to help you to make sure you're getting exactly what you need out of that company's support. And that was it. I usually share this with Richard, my acoustic consultant here. So Richard's not on this one today. Real quick, I wanted to show you again the link to register. So if you click that link, it should be in the chat. You can make sure to register your name and whichever affiliation you're with so that we can get you that CEU credit. So I think I went a bit faster since I didn't share it with Richard. So sorry for that, guys. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Sam. Yes, you gained 9 minutes. So that was pretty fast, but thank you so much for the information.
Yeah, there was a group in here, and it was speaking of acoustics and distraction. I was like, oh man, this group was distracting me. So yeah. I apologize if that carried over onto your side of it.
Well, Sam, I haven't seen any questions yet, but I would like to give everybody the opportunity now. If you do have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. I actually wanted to ask you something too. I mean, I've been in this industry for a number of years now, and I know acoustics are always a big concern to a lot of clients. First, it was going all open. Now, I've heard concerns, well, if we're going to add more screens, more shielding, and we don't pick the right ones, is that also going to have an acoustic problem? So kind of wanted to ask you, how do you help designers and clients go through this whole acoustic process? And do you have any services available to
So
support
no,
the design
yes,
community?
now with the CEU portion being over, I can certainly discuss specifically Buzzy space in this regard. So actually, you know what? I'll share my screen again for just a second, because we do have, and a number of companies do, of course, but where did this share go? This is an interesting question, and I couldn't show some of these in the other portion. Why is this share? There it goes. So with us specifically, oopsie, where is that? If you're looking at a Buzzy Space product, obviously if you go to any product page, you can go to any of the specifications. Okay, that's fine. Everybody's got spec sheets. But some of the other tools we have, and this one's not a light fixture, but this is a very basic Buzzy Space product, our acoustic skin product. You want to, how do you know how much skin to use? So we just have a very simple tool. You can plug in your room dimensions and it will tell you exactly how much square footage you would need. And we sell this particular product in rolls. So that's a very basic product. I think having a product with the configurator too, this is going to help you to pick out everything correctly from the right sizes, the right finishes, plug that into Revit. You can have your nice plan. But when it gets to what you're asking about with the acoustics, our project care team. So as I mentioned, I usually share these presentations with Richard. He's our acoustician. He's also on our project care team. So he and the others in the EU office, they'll take a space and they can take all the room dimensions. If you have the space existing, then they can take photos and images and actually do testing. If it's not existing, just the drawing and all the specs. Is it concrete floor? What's the average number of people that will be in that space? And they can run an assessment of how it's going to perform before there's any treatments done. So in this case, this wasn't performing quite well. We needed to balance the space out. So we put in different product and balance this out. So this was, we do all kinds of different reporting and presentations for specific projects to show how it's going to improve the space, so you have the actual data behind it.
So you will help with those reports for the before and after?
Yes, we can do the before and after. And usually too, what we'll do is if we know a budget, that's great. If we don't, we can put together like different options. So we can have option high end, middle of the road, and you have barely no budget at all. and when you can know, okay, well, this is what I'm paying for with the acoustic source. So Trisha, you turned your camera on. Were you gonna butt in on it? You're like, Sam, you're doing a horrible job. You're muted. So. I see you talking, Trisha, but you're muted.
No, you didn't do a horrible job, Sam. No, I just wanted to just emphasize that, yeah, that is a completely complimentary service that our project care team provides. So if you have an existing space, a new space, if you have any questions, just looking for some guidance, like Sam said, we can create like a good, better, best kind of tiered solution based on budget and performance, just to see a range, or if there are any specific products in particular that your client wants to use, we can incorporate those also into the design and see how it performs with just those, or if we need to add more product to kind of get it in that sweet spot.
But if I understand correctly, you're mostly primarily an acoustical company.
Yes.
So you will not do a lighting plan. You'll help with an acoustic plan.
We can do lighting plans. So we have all the photometric files for our products on our website. So our project care, they can actually do a lighting layout for you. The tricky part is we only have our own IES files. So in most projects, they're going to have architectural lighting, can lights, strip lights, or whatever. So we can, if it's only our lighting in the space, totally fine. Or maybe it's within one part of a space. You want to make sure you're getting the lux levels. We can do that for you. Otherwise, you're going to want to use your own lighting person on your team or lighting designer to make sure you're getting the right lux levels throughout the whole project.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I don't see any questions yet. So since we still have a few more minutes, I'll be so bold and just ask you another question I'm really curious about. There's a lot of companies out there doing acoustic products right now, acoustic treatments. I had never personally heard of acoustic lighting before. Is that unique? Is your product unique? Can you tell us a little bit?
No, well, of course our product is unique. No, but no, there's definitely a trend in acoustic lighting and acoustics in general. So I think one of the great things about Buzzy Space, and not only with our lighting, but we make a lot of products that are multifunctional. And since we're talking about lighting, I'll just keep with the lighting here, but you're getting a 3-in-1 solution. So you're getting an aesthetic solution, you're getting an acoustic support, and you're also getting a light element. When it comes to our lighting though, most companies, with the exception of only one other company, they're basically using PET boards. So you might see that you're most likely to know of that with a baffle, like those linear, straight, hard PET boards. And that's totally fine, but it's with that type of material, they have to cut it and carve it. So it's usually more angular in nature, and maybe that works for you. But what's unique with Buzzy Space is because we do furniture, we can upholster with that high density foam where you're really getting from the low to the mid to the high tones. You're capturing the whole gamut of audible sound with upholstered pieces, and nobody else is doing upholstered lighting. So that's where we can really stand out. And it also, not only it's more effective, but also has a different aesthetic because it's got a kind of a squishy kind of look to it. Squishy is a technical term, by the way.
Okay, excellent. I don't see any questions. Actually, a little unusual. Normally there are questions, but yes. I got one request. Yeah, the recording will be made available within the next 72 hours. So there's a question about when this recording will be made available. However, I'm going maybe Sam, you showed one very specific slide. You said everybody should really have that one or take a screenshot.
Oh, well, I'm a nerd.
Well, maybe you can forward that to us and we can share that with the group.
Yeah, no, I like it because it shows like the reverberation time. So if you want to know, like, you want to put in enough products to cut down the reverberation within a space, you've got that on the slide. And also it has the lux levels. So you want to know that you've got the right illumination in the space. So it's like both of those are important, but usually they're something you have to search for in 2 different areas. So having it in one place can be helpful. Yeah, I can share that with you.
Okay, yeah, that will be excellent. And then finally, I have one more question for you, and that is because you kind of referred to that earlier, that both lighting and acoustics are very important in the WELL certification. I'm starting to see that now taking off in Vancouver. I'm aware of a few projects. So the information that you would provide can then be used by the WELL team for their certification process?
On that particular slide, you could use it as a guide, but that one doesn't have. I think I do have another slide from another presentation that actually has the WELL information on it. If I have that, I'll forward it to you as well. But yeah, it's different, and the WELL portion for the acoustics is obviously how balanced it is, that you're getting that proper level of reverberation reduction in the space. With the lighting portion, it's more than just, I know I talked a lot about lux levels, but it also has to do with the energy consumption as well, which I didn't really touch on. So that's not going to be on the slide that I have for WELL, but it does tie into it.
Well, it's to do with glare as well.
Yes,
Glares are
that's
important.
true. Yeah, I can send you that one as well. You know what? I'll just send you the whole thing and you can chop it however you want.
Okay, excellent. Well, Sam, thank you so much for the informative webinar today. So thank you. I want to thank everybody for participating today as well in our webinar. You will be receiving a survey from us today, and just asking you if you can complete that will also help us with future topics. Just a reminder again, on December 9th, we will be having our Healthy Walls. So choosing sustainable wall coverings, also a CEU. So especially if you need your CEU credits, great one to participate in. And then that leaves that, this is the end of the webinar for us today. A little bit earlier, but I'm sure everybody has a lot of busy things to do today. So thank you, Sam.
Oh, I have one question. I've already registered, so that link basically asks you to register again. Is there something more direct?
It should.
Does it ask you to register and put in a passcode? And I've done that previously and put in my IDC number.
Okay.
So
if you've done it already, then yeah, I mean, if you did it in advance, it's not a problem. So, or if you've used that platform before and it remembered your password, so long it will be specific to this one if you use that link. So it shouldn't be an issue.
So then it will automatically
Oh, it's not automatic. So
no,
no, you won't get the, it's not automatic. So at the end of the presentation today, Gianpaolo will say, hey, I've had Sharon and 25 other people on there. And we'll just be like, I had this conversation actually the other day. I'm like, if somebody really hacked into our computer and snuck in to register the CEU, then they earned it, I guess. But no, basically we wait 24 hours to make sure everybody's had time to do it. And then we go through and punch the button. So then you get an automated email at that point.
Oh, so I should probably wait then 24 hours.
No, if you've already done it, you're fine. You're not gonna get their certificate instantly, if that's what you're questioning.
Yeah, because I went and looked and thought, oh, okay, there's nothing there. So
no, it has to rely on somebody on my team to actually say, no, Sharon was here. So we, like I said, it might be Monday just to get people over the weekend. If you need it tomorrow, then I'll tell my team to go ahead and approve it today.
No, I I thought, oh, I'd go on and do it, but I realized I've already done it, so I didn't want to do it again. Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
I just saw one other question come through. Just wanted to answer that one. How can we join the other CEU? You can go to our website, so chaseoffice.ca. You will find the information there to sign up. I don't think it's up today, but it will be up really soon, and then you can register for the next CEU. So please check our website.